Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back to another Plan With Me video. In today's video I'm going to be setting up my September challenges page. I set up a page similar to this one last month and I actually found it quite helpful to use compared to my power sheets. So for September I'm actually not using my power sheets and instead just using this monthly challenges spread. The two main goals that I've decided to focus on for September are my teaching effectively goal and also maintaining life balance goal. In terms of timing for this one, it took about 30 minutes from first touch of the pen to final erasings. But of course that doesn't include the penciling in time, which took probably another 5 minutes. The total time taken wasn't helped by me making a couple of mistakes, so in a bit you'll see that when it came to the border, especially at the top, I made a bit of a stuff up. I do go back in a bit later and go over this with my white gel pen though, so easy fix. I think it's important to share these kind of mistakes with you guys because when you look at the final product, especially on places like Instagram and Pinterest, it can be hard to appreciate that even the people behind these pictures are making mistakes too. And I am certainly not immune. I make a lot of mistakes. In terms of the questions that were left on last week's Plan With Me, our first one comes from Marmonial, who asked, if you could be in any other profession than teaching, what would you choose? Probably something like a professional party planner or wedding planner. I've kind of always been drawn to the idea of that. Otherwise, it would be nice to be in a profession which is kind of centered around YouTube content creating, planner stuff, because I like that as well. I could be a professional domestic goddess that doesn't do housework, or like a stay-at-home mom that doesn't have kids. That'd be cool. Our next question comes from Kathleen, who asked, have you ever thought to do spreads with stickers? I've done one weekly spread with stickers before. That did not turn out very successfully. I don't have anything against stickers, it just so happens that the stickers that I have aren't overly functional, and if they are functional, I don't really have enough variety in those to achieve what I want from a spread. If I had functional stickers like mini calendars or trackers or something like that, I'd totally use those. I just don't have any. Our next question came from Marcy, who asked, not a question about the Bujo itself, but I'm curious. How does the terms work at your school? I mean, how many terms are there, and is there any exams at the end of the terms? How long is a class, and how long are the breaks? And when do you have school holidays, or what kinds of school without lessons days do you typically have? So for us in New Zealand, and at my school, we have a year that runs from January through to December, so our longest holiday break is over our summer, which is in December, January. We have 4 terms in a school year, and for the last couple years those have been 11 weeks and then a 2-week break, 10 weeks and then a 3-week break, which is kind of unique to my school. Most of them only have a 2-week break. Then the third term has 9 weeks and another 2-week break, and then we're into the last term which has 8 weeks. Again, another quite short one, which is more a my school thing rather than an every school thing. In terms of my school days, I have 6 periods a day, so 2 periods, then morning tea, 2 periods, then lunch, and then 2 periods, and then the end of the day. Each of those periods is 55 minutes long. We don't have any really school without lessons kind of days, except for EOTC week, so education outside of the classroom. That happens in the 3rd week of term 1 every year, and it's essentially like camp week. So for 3 or 4 days during that week, each year level goes away as a year level, or they might have activities based in Wellington, but what they do on each of those is different depending on which year level they're in. For assessments, these don't happen at the end of every term, they're scattered throughout the terms, but in term 4 for our senior students, this is when they'll have their final exams. So they finish being at school a fair bit earlier than our middle school classes, so they can go on study leave. And then they'll have their exams which are sat at the same time for everybody in the country. So everybody doing like the level 2 English exam will sit it at the same time. Everybody doing the level 3 Spanish exam, say, they'll all sit that at the same time too. Our next question came from Lauren, who asked, I've been bullet journaling for about 1.5 years now, and I'm wondering if you ever have a brain dump spread or just a page full of notes. I love trackers and dailies, but sometimes I think I should be doing more free writing or reflection. Where do you put that stuff? Typically, if I have a brain dump spread, I'll put it in as part of my monthly setup, so it'll usually fit somewhere in amongst my monthly setup pages, but I'm not opposed to just turning to the next blank page and putting it there. I know some people put those kind of pages at the back of their journal, especially if they're not going to end up being overly aesthetically pleasing. They kind of get shunned to the back of the journal. But also, coming to your point of thinking that you should be doing this, you don't have to be doing it. Especially if it's not something that's going to be of benefit to you. If you try it and it does prove to be quite useful, then yes, keep doing it. But if you try it and it doesn't really work for you, don't feel like you should or have to. But yes, for me, for that type of page, I will just put it in as part of my monthly setup. But you could also have a certain section or space in your journal dedicated to that kind of stuff. Whether that be somewhere at the front, somewhere at the back, somewhere else. Butterfly Nez asked, question, have you heard of the notebook therapy, and would you consider buying their notebook instead of an Archer and Olive? I have heard of them, and it's not that I'm opposed to buying their journal, it's just that I really wanted to try the Neapolitan, and I've actually got another Archer and Olive on the shelf, so I'll probably use that Archer and Olive as my next journal. A slight issue that I take with notebook therapy and other stationery shops that are similar to that, and this isn't shade, this is just something that bothers me. I don't like it when on Instagram they tag their posts as hashtag bullet journal when the post has absolutely nothing to do with bullet journaling. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. And it's not just a them thing. It happens for a lot of those kind of stationery companies. It really, really triggers me. I know that's obviously not about their notebook at all, but I'm tilted. So I'm less inclined to buy their journal. Even though their journal is probably fabulous quality and totally user-friendly and all of that stuff. So I wouldn't be opposed to using one, but I don't think I would go out of my way to buy one. Does that kind of make sense? Our next question came from Anita, who said, I'm feeling particularly anxious about the state of the world, and my family won't stop saying this or that thing is going to be the end of the world. Any ideas to make them stop? To start with, I think we can all kind of relate to how you're feeling, Anita. The world doesn't seem to be in a great state right now. In terms of dealing with your family, though, outside of just having an open and honest conversation with them about how their comments like this make you feel, I don't think I have a lot of other advice for you. I know that having conversations like that can be difficult, and they certainly aren't for everyone, but letting people know where you're coming from and how their words are having an effect on you would likely be a step in the right direction. I don't know if there's anybody else listening who can offer Anita some better advice regarding that, but if you do have any advice to share, please do drop it in the comments. Our next questions come from Wendy Bird and Bethany, who both wanted to see what I was talking about in my last video regarding planning spreads using Excel. So this is the template that I use in Excel to mock up pages for my journal. As you can see, we have these sections of grid here, and then outside of this it's just white. So on this side of the large merged box, we have the left-hand side of a spread, and on this side we have the right-hand side of a spread. This one's set up so that the number of squares across the top and the number of squares down the side in the grid section are the same as my bullet journal pages. So this one's set up to be the same as the LT 1917 or the Archer and Olive. So we have 26 boxes across and 38 boxes down. This just means that if I want to make a spread that I haven't made before, I can play around in Excel here and figure out the spacing that I'm going to need for each section. So for instance, if we go into this one here, you can see this one was related to some kind of weekly spread. We have 7 sections in here, which could be for something like a meal log. We have a section at the top here, which might be for like a mini calendar or something like that. And then 6 sections, so 1 for each weekday and then probably the weekend shared. So rather than sketching this out in my bullet journal to figure out the spacing, I can just use coloured boxes or use borders and things like that to see how that would work together on Excel instead. Another example would be this one. So this was for when I was planning out a video on teaching related spreads. So you see on the page on the left, this would be something like a kind of outline for each of your classes in terms of what topics are going to go when. Whereas this page on the right here would be a year at a glance kind of thing, where you might want to record your holidays, your staff only days. any applied leave, that kind of stuff. But again, rather than drawing it out in my journal to start with, I play around with the spacing in here because it's just a little bit easier than penciling everything out and then erasing it and yeah. The other little page that I have down here was just mocking up putting in a header, so getting the spacing right for that. But yeah, I don't use it all too often, but when I do use it, I do find it very helpful. Firefly Links asked, what are your guilty pleasure things you like to draw/to do when you're feeling under the weather? Well, my favourite thing to draw would have to be like stars and sparkles. I'm very big on that at the moment. I also really love Zentangles, just because of how awesomely visually appealing they look when you're finished. In terms of other things that I like to do though, in particular when I'm not feeling the greatest, I like curling up in my chair and playing some Xbox or watching a movie, binge watching Netflix, that kind of stuff. Or eating things I shouldn't. I do that a lot. Thank you to our inquirers from last week. If you guys have any questions you want me to answer in next week's video, please do leave them in the comments below. Also, just as a shameless self-promo, for the month of September over in the JashiiCorrin community group on Facebook, we're running another Month of Planning with Me challenge, where each day there's a prompt and you post a picture related to that prompt. If you want to join in, please do make sure you drop by that community group. There's a link in the description box below. We would love to have you there. And now for a look at what this page is looking like today. So you can see some of these I have gotten started on, but considering it's only the 3rd day of September, there's still a fair bit left to go. My question for you guys though, what are your action items or goals for September? As you can see, mine are mostly related to school and then not getting stressed out because of school. But I'm always curious to know what you guys are up to. With that said though, thank you for watching team. If you liked today's video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you wanted to see more from me, feel free to go check out one of my other videos. Until next time, bye!